So you know those gamers who leave those hilarious reviews on products that say something like, oh, the game was okay, but then you look at their time played and it's like 2,000 hours? Yeah, that's a pretty significant time investment on a game, and by their time played, we're supposed to infer that they enjoyed the game, even when they don't explicitly say it. And in case that figure doesn't impress you, let me just break it down. In 2018, on average, people aged 15 to 24 years in the United States spent about 43 minutes per day playing games. In 2018, at that same time, 25 to 34-year-olds spent 21 minutes daily on this leisure activity, according to statistics posted on Statista.com in their hobby section for sports and recreation. So, amassing that amount of time played, assuming they were an average individual, 15 to 24 years of age, would take them over 7.5 years, and more than 15.5 years for the average person in the 25 to 34-year-old bracket. But here on this channel, those are pathetic numbers, and while I can't really be considered to be a hardcore gamer, I do still have to work, sleep, eat, and find time to squeeze out videos in between. I do spend a ridiculous amount of time playing video games, as much as 8 hours per day. And assuming that I was able to commit 8 hours every single night, which I definitely can't, that would still put me at 250 days to log 2,000 hours played in a particular title. That's most of a year, which, for most people, doing the same thing every night for most of a year would get at best tedious and at worst torturous. So what's going on here? How do these players keep coming back to these games day after day after day, and keep finding inspiration to launch it again? What is the draw? Well, I would say it's grinding. Not club grinding, though. I've never set foot in a nightclub, and honestly, even the thought of doing so fills me with a primal terror that my rational brain just can't justify. Repeated actions, whether it's fighting the same creatures over and over in pursuit of an item they supposedly carry, repeating the same levels over and over to get every single item and hidden reward, or just repeating the story to exhaustively use every single combination of dialogue possible. Why do we do this? What makes these things fun and enjoyable? Well, I'd argue that those of us who can set our own goals and achieve them do so chasing after that sense of self-satisfaction that can only come from proving to yourself that you can overcome an obstacle in your life. For me, personally, it's chasing after mastery of a game. I can't put down a game for the last time until I feel like I've actually gotten good at the game and can pull off the most difficult and complex trickery available within the confines of that digital environment. And developers know about people like me. They know about completionists. They know about the players who enjoy getting a kick out of accomplishing things. And in 1982, Activision codified this feeling for the first time using real-life rewards. They were basically patches for high scores. There was a system where you would obtain a particular high score in one of their games and take a picture of it, and then you'd send in the photo and receive a physical iron-on patch, similar in fashion to the Boy Scouts. This system would lay the groundwork for what would eventually become achievements or trophies in the later years. And having built a system that tickles that particular desire in our brains has spurred many in the gaming community to adopt grinding styles of play, when they otherwise wouldn't. Just to maintain the purity of our subject here today, I'm not really talking about the kind of person who is driven to collect achievements because it inflates the number on their account or gives them some kind of currency that they can use to buy new games. Those individuals may engage in grinding behavior as well, but they have demonstrably different motivations. No, I'm talking about those of us who seem to enjoy the mundane and repeatable tasks, or who can endlessly rerun simulations of war and battle hundreds or thousands of times. What keeps us going? Well, initially, it was out of a need to do so. Grinding in games was originally a solution due to lack of content, or at least insufficient experience to level up from quests to fight stronger enemies. Referring specifically to JRPGs for the moment, games like Dragon Warrior and Final Fantasy use grinding to their advantage to pad out game time, arbitrarily requiring a minimum number of battles before you could progress your character or the story, with some players opting to continue the grind and push the limits of their personal power. This style of play spawned an interest and genre that has continued to this very day. Final Fantasy and the Dragon Warrior, now known as Dragon Quest, are still relevant titles in 2020, and it doesn't look like they're going anywhere anytime soon. Grinding became something of a standard practice in the gaming industry for a variety of genres, perhaps becoming most widespread in the MMO genre, and featured strongly in games like World of Warcraft and EverQuest. These games are often critiqued for having broad, shallow content for the majority of players, with only the most dedicated reaching the content at the end. And then of course you have players who seem to have some sort of manic obsession with a particular title. I have come dangerously close to falling into this category with a few different titles. And though I've moved past them now, I could definitely be convinced to boot them up again and keep going on my never-ending journey. For me, there are 3 titles that have captured this particular attention for me, and I'll list them in order of release. So we've got Mount & Blade Warband, Dark Souls 3, and World of Warcraft. Though to be honest, World of Warcraft's addiction has very little to do with the game itself, and much more to do with the strong feelings I develop from members of the community, and the shared experiences I've collected from it lends a rather strong sense of nostalgia that prevents me from parting with a game I have poured so much of my essence into. Mount & Blade is an odd one. It released in March of 2010, and it's basically a medieval fantasy sandbox kingdom builder where you begin life as a peasant with a tragic backstory of some description, riding to find yourself a new life in the land of Calradia. And find a new life I did. As of writing, I have almost 1,700 hours in Mount & Blade Warband, and about 200 for its sequel, and I know that's nothing compared to some of the true veterans of that community, but this game was simply a delight. It combined for me some of the most appealing parts of other games under one title, and I just couldn't stop making new peasants with different backstories and conquering Calradia in different ways. And then there is the multiplayer, with its endless modules and communities. Honestly, it's no surprise that the game is still thriving 10 years after its release, and I can't imagine it going anywhere anytime soon, even with the sequel having just recently been released. Dark Souls 3 was a complete tonal shift for me, and it marked my first foray into the Soulsborne series. Not chronologically, of course, but it is the first of the series that I took seriously. I played Dark Souls Prepare to Die edition, and I played Dark Souls 2 as well, but they did not hook me like 3 did. I'm not sure what it was. Maybe it was just good timing, or maybe I was just starting to appreciate the darker gothic themes of games like Dark Souls. It certainly wasn't because of my friends, because this was an indulgence I gave myself completely of my own accord. I do know why the gameplay stuck with me though. I'd gotten a lot more competitive over the years, having played a few games of Smite and League, and Dark Souls 3 just perfectly hit that niche of dark and mysterious RPG, competitive PvP, and there were so many build combinations, and oh man, I remember when I was at my most involved, invading for 8 hours straight with no breaks and loving every minute of it. It's one of the few games I ever bothered to track down and complete all of the achievements for, and I would do it again. I love this game with every fiber of my being, and it's earned every one of the 1,300 hours I've played with friends and community members. Dark Souls 3 was a game changer for me for a couple of different reasons. For a long time, I had been very much a keyboard and mouse snob, and don't get me wrong, I do still prefer keyboard and mouse for most games, but Dark Souls showed me that controllers were absolutely viable, and in fact could be superior to keyboards in specific instances. I still wouldn't use one for a shooter, but I'll take a relaxed controller grip leaning back in my chair while I casually read through quirky dialogue from eerie NPCs any day. In conclusion, grinding. It's a controversial topic among gamers, with some saying it's lazy game design, and others saying it just appeals to a different niche. I'm definitely in the latter camp, as grinding absolutely appeals to my particular niche, and I think that somewhat reflects the kind of people we are. I think playing grinding games requires a lot of patience and forethought, being able to envision yourself having achieved whatever goal it is you've set for yourself, as well as all the steps you need to take along the way to get there. Some honorable mentions of games that have soaked up an unreasonable amount of time in my lifespan, but I didn't really want to talk about in detail, are Minecraft, Runes of Magic, Guild Wars 2, and ArcheAge. Each of these games has had a profound effect on me, helping shape my young mind and priming me to look for adventure everywhere I go. I like to think of my past with gaming as the fundamental building blocks for creating the vessel with which I see the world every day. I can see it reflected in the worlds I craft now as a dungeon master and in my own personal projects. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and be well.